coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast, our 41st Arsenal podcast. I should have said something last week for it being the 40th, but we wanted to get on with talking about the game and another sad defeat. Well, we're back again with a very similar outcome to the weekend's results, but we'll come to that in a second. First of all, the usual introductions. Glad to say it's the normal group. So I am Matt H. We also have Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt. I'm really glad I didn't have to go into work today.
Yeah, I think that would have pretty much put the tin lid on the whole thing, wouldn't it? Given the weekend we've just had. And we are also with Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Evening. Don't think I've ever been so glad for an international break. 2 weeks without having to watch them.
This is true, isn't it? Sad but true to get a Metallica reference in. Yeah, it really has been a weekend. Well, look, let's get on with it then, because there's quite a lot to get in. Apart from the review of the match, we've also got transfer news, which again isn't necessarily particularly cheery, but we'll do that. We've got some cup draws as well and some predictions. Then we can all have a breather, as Matt alludes to, for a couple of weeks. Right, so to business. We played Liverpool yesterday. We lost 4-0 to Liverpool yesterday. We were, to use the old joke, lucky to get nil. It was possibly one of the most abysmal performances from an Arsenal team I've seen for a long time. It even had the ability of uniting Graham Souness, Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville and indeed Thierry Henry in their disgust of varying levels about the Arsenal performance. We've seen this kind of thing before, but I'm not sure we've ever seen it quite at this level, although the most unsurprising thing about this is it's not surprising, if that makes sense, which is as depressing as I think it is true. I don't think we need to go through all the Liverpool goals one by one. I don't think we deserve that. Other than I think it's worth pointing out Liverpool played very well and were very deserving. But I mean, the bottom line here is that if Arsenal are going to be challenging for things, they need to not be losing 4-0 on a regular basis, and not, to make a bigger point, not be losing on a regular basis. And losing and playing badly is becoming a bit of a nasty habit at the moment. But before I get into too much of a rant myself, let's try and have a semblance of order to things. So we'll look at the team news first, or the starting 11. And Alexis was back. Oxlade-Chamberlain was playing, perhaps surprising some people. And Lacazette was not playing, which seems odd. And neither was Kolasinac, of course, either. So our two new signings didn't play at all. Matt, any thoughts? I'm sure you've got plenty of thoughts, but any particular thoughts on the starting 11?
I mean, last week's starting 11 was surprising. This week, it was even worse. Kolasinac last season was the best left back in the Bundesliga, and we signed him as a specialist to play at left wing back, and yet we've played him twice at centre back and have now dropped him so that we can squeeze in a midfielder who wants to leave at wing back and play Bellerin at left wing back. It hasn't worked so far, so I don't know why we carried on with that. And then, I mean, to play Danny Welbeck instead of Lacazette, if Wenger wanted a different system in that he wanted to cross more balls into the box because he thought Liverpool were defensively weak, and he played Giroud up front, people might not agree with it, but you'd be able to see the logic in it. There'd be a clear system. But Danny Welbeck is really just a worse version of Lacazette. So I didn't see any logic at all in starting him. And then, I mean, we'll come on to some of the substitutions later, but yeah, the team news each week's getting more and more baffling.
Yeah, I think baffling's a good word. Lacazette, you spend 50 million quid on him, he expects to play, I expect, apart from anything else. That was odd. I mean, to be fair, Liverpool, we're not going to talk about Liverpool, obviously, because we don't need to. They were very good, and Salah in particular I thought looked fantastic for them. But they dropped Mignolet because Klopp said he needed a rest, which seemed an odd thing to do before an international break. So that almost was an interesting story, but of course was completely blown away by, from an Arsenal point of view, everything that we did. Pete, any thoughts on that starting 11?
Much the same as Matt's comments. I think possibly that the other thing I've mentioned is that, as I said last week, it seems a little a little strange to play as an adventurous as midfield as Xhaka and Ramsey together away from home when you've already seen it go a bit wrong against Stoke. And so I felt that was, although I can see there probably isn't much other option at the moment other than starting Coquelin, I thought that was a bit odd as well, not to change that maybe for this match. Welbeck, yeah, it is a problem, and I think this we'll come back to later. I do think he works really, really hard, and he has a lot of influence on the game, though, which, as I've said before, I'm still not convinced Lacazette does. However, Lacazette does put the ball in the net, and we scored 0, so it was obviously a mistake.
It was. I mean, I'm all for giving people chances to some extent, but I don't think Welbeck. We're getting back to this whole idea that Henri mentioned yesterday in the post-match stuff about comfort, and he's not feeling any threat to his position, so he doesn't necessarily need to buck his ideas up, to use a very old-fashioned Saudi expression. And it's I'm not having a go at him. I'm having a go at the system, and dare I say the manager who puts him in that position. If he's asked to play there, of course he's going to play there. He's not going to turn around and say, I think you should pick this other guy who's better. But it is worrying, and I think another worrying stat, which you've probably seen, we didn't have a single shot on goal throughout the whole game. Now that doesn't come down to just one individual's fault, if you like. It's a whole team thing. But Liverpool had 10, we had 0. Someone will know when we last had a game where we didn't have at least one shot on target, but I would imagine it was some time ago.
I think I mean that I wouldn't have minded seeing Welbeck in the side, but not at the expense of Lacazette.
Yeah, understood. I think that's. Yeah.
You could have even dropped Ozil or not put our friendly little Chilean up front, possibly. As neither of them played very well, but I suppose that at the first time you get the chance to play Sanchez and Ozil together, you're going to take it. But maybe that was something that could have been thought about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go through Liverpool goals because I don't think that's going to cheer anyone up on a sunny bank holiday evening. But you can probably sum a lot of them up in the word discipline. Souness, I thought, made some very interesting points after the game, and he talked about when having two big central midfielders who, for the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the game, will just sit there and watch and never allowed in front of the ball, was a sort of very basic rule of thumb. And as he said that, I thought, yeah, that sounds eminently sensible, whereas we end up with being completely exposed the moment we lose the ball in any attacking position. Matt, would you like to comment on our midfielders in general, or either of them in particular, or any of them, I should say, in particular?
Yeah, the midfield just didn't exist. Ramsey, I don't think, spent a single second behind the ball. He was floating around as a centre forward, which left Xhaka hopelessly exposed. And Xhaka seems to be making a weekly thing of giving a ball the way to directly lead to a goal. I mean, our defence is flimsy at the best of times. They don't need a non-existent midfield to make it worse. And I know we brought on Coquelin to try and shore things up, but I mean that had no effect either. So the midfield was such an issue because you just feel as soon as we give the ball away at any point on the pitch, Liverpool were just so dangerous on the counter attack. I think tactically, I mean, I really like Ramsey, I do, and we love the way he makes his runs forward. But there's a time and a place, and 10 minutes into an away game at Anfield, a ground where we always seem to be 2 or 3 down after 20 minutes, there has to be some common sense. Even if Wenger has told him to get forward, he has to have some common sense and realise we need to just keep things solid. But he just left the defence hopelessly exposed. Xhaka's in a really poor run of form, and that combined with the shambolic defence is not going to end well any game, and it hasn't for the last 2, and it didn't really for the first game against Leicester. But we managed to score our way out of trouble, so to speak.
Yeah, Xhaka managed to combine midfielding competence, I'm not picking on him particularly, but in general, with some defensive incompetence as well. When he tried that back heel in his own area, I mean that to me the whole team looked like there's no confidence, there's no belief, all the things that Arsenal will come out with, spirits and all the rest of it after a good performance. None of it seemed there. which is disappointing. I'm trying desperately to look for the odd positive point. There weren't really any, but I'm going to check. Pulled off a couple of excellent saves, I thought. And Holding, actually, coming back, he seemed to, generally speaking, be in the right place. He made a number of good tackles. I don't want to turn it into pretend everything's all right just because a couple of players did okay. But Pete, first of all, for you, is any bright spots at all you can think of?
Not really. I really can't. I hate to say it. But I must say, in some ways, I'm less concerned about the 4 against than I am for the 0-4. In many ways, it was horrific defensive performance. So therefore, you might expect to lose four goals. But in terms of what we were doing, to come up, as you say, with no shots on goal, or not on target, I think it was just horrendous. And I think that started. There was an early chance for Welbeck where he was put through, and you just knew that he had no chance of finishing it. But he should have done, and others should have had chances that they should have been able to finish for the game. And to be playing against a Liverpool defence that are notoriously Arsenal-esque in some ways, and a goalkeeper that they've thrown in at the last minute, to not at least be able to get a consolation goal against them just seemed awful to me. So I'm not really sure I can. I feel if we'd looked better and sharper going forward, then I would have had something positive to say. But because we didn't, I don't.
That's fair enough. I mean, I think the 2 points I'll make very quickly. One is that defending should begin from the front, so we can't just blame the defenders, even if, but it's the whole system is people in the wrong place. I think, you want people to be getting in and getting the ball, challenging that midfield, and I think we're taking that into account. The midfield, as we know, as Matt I think alluded to, non-existent. But the other point I was going to mention, just because something occurs to me while you were speaking, I think it was the third goal. And that really was a dagger, as it were, into the heart, because I think that was when Liverpool scored from one of our corners, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember when we did that. I remember particularly when we did it against Spurs in 2004. I think it was 13 seconds from them having a corner to us sliding it in, and that was like. And I don't want to get too nostalgic, but we used to do that. Arsenal-esque used to be a good thing, and that used to be what it was. And over the last, dare we say, a decade now, that just hasn't been there. So I was sort of looking for positives. Perhaps I'm trying to be even-handed about it, but it's just nothing there.
And it really was a turning point, that as well, wasn't it? At that point, we're 2-0 down, and we had actually started the second half reasonably well, and the move to a back 4 and getting people in their proper positions seems to be having some effect. And where maybe we could have got back into it had we scored at that point, but giving away the third like that was just shambolic, as you say, from a corner, which is the sort of thing that we should be doing, not letting the opposition do to us. It was awful. Yeah,
it absolutely was. Matt, what kind of things are going through your mind as the game goes on? I mean, is it just despair? Is it amusement? It certainly seemed to amuse Sanchez, or something amused him on the bench. Maybe we shouldn't be jump to too many conclusions immediately, but 4-0 down, he was caught smiling, which is never a good look.
I was just it's annoying at first. I was just becoming increasingly bored. It was just the longest 90 minutes. I mean, it's as bad as I think I've seen us play in a long, long time. But, did I really expect much different? I mean, I might have expected us to be a bit more dangerous going forward. But I think there's every chance we could have conceded 4. I think there was every chance we were going to lose, because it's the same team. We've signed 2 players and we've benched them. There's no reason for it to be any different. We seem to be getting worse, and if by the reports we seem intent on selling half our team this week, it's not going to get much better. But no, we just didn't ever look like scoring. And as you mentioned before, their keeper looked dreadful. We were at our most dangerous when he had the ball. He was determined to let us try and do something, and we didn't make him make a single save, and he looked so flimsy. I just thought if we put some pressure on, their defence could properly collapse, but nothing came. And I mean, in terms of positives, it's probably that it wasn't 6 or 7, because it easily could have been.
Yeah, well, that's a very good way of putting it, I think, which is the frightening aspect of things. We what do we do? I mean, I think we had the same conversation last week, so we perhaps don't need to do it all over again. But as I said, we've done 40 of these now. On my rough estimate, and I haven't checked, I reckon a third, maybe into a quarter of those, there's been some negative result that we've had to discuss, either a draw when a win was thrown away, or a defeat, or something, or even a bad performance in a sneaking a win somewhere. Teams that win the league don't have that happening that often. Teams that win the league don't start September in 16th place in the table. I know I shouldn't over-egg that particular pudding, but that's you don't win the league from that position. Your point about it not being a surprise, I think, is absolutely bang on. It's not a surprise, and I'm watching it probably in the same kind of mindset as you, thinking, well, let's escape now. I mean, I was covering it for By the Minute, and I talked about Liverpool declaring it at 2 and then at 4, and it's very sad to have to watch it. But almost the bigger frustration is I can't see how it's ever going to change. I don't think signing a number of players this week, even if that happens, given that it seems we're going to be letting a lot go as well, and we'll come on to that in a second, I just don't see that improving matters at all. I just find it all very depressing. I don't really think anything's going to change. And I know we can't always have teams with Perez, Henry, Vieira, Lundberg, Petit, the solid defence, but we don't seem to be getting close to any of those areas on the pitch at all. We don't seem to have any area of the pitch where we have any really high quality players, or at least they don't look like they are. I'm sure they are, but the system or something isn't allowing them, or maybe there's no discipline. I don't know. I'm ranting now myself because I really don't know what the answer is, and it's the frustration is for me the biggest issue. Pete, anything you'd like to say while I get my breath back?
No, I will agree with you that I can't see much easily changing, because those players at the moment do not look like they are in a position to take control of any football match, let alone away at Anfield, and as we saw against Stoke, they don't look like the personalities who will do. I think it's possible that if we do get into a settled team with players playing in their right position, and get past the transfer window, so that whoever comes in or goes out, it doesn't matter, just get it out of the way, so at least we know, because we're still in this ridiculous position of why are we playing Oxlade-Chamberlain when we don't even know if he's going to be here or not. I can vaguely see an argument for trying to force him into the team if you know he's going to be part of your team going forward, but let's just get that out of the way, and maybe after the end of the transfer window we can start feeling more like a settled club, if nothing else, because maybe that is having an effect on players. As I say, at the moment they seem to have absolutely no mastery of the game at all.
Yeah, Matt, we won't make ourselves feel any bad for much longer with this. Well, we've got other things we can do that with, but I'm going to mention the manager again because it came up on Sunday, and it's come up, let's face it, for months now, and people are starting to look there again. Now we know he signed the contract, so we know, being realistic, probably nothing much is going to change for this season at least. How much of this blame do you think, and perhaps blame isn't quite that word, but how much of this failing, if you like, do we put at his doorstep?
Yeah, I think, first of all, whatever team he plays, and the personnel he puts out on the pitch, or the tactics, the performances and the level of effort that was on Sunday, isn't particularly down to him, and it's not acceptable from the players. They have to have a responsibility to track back, or to make simple passes, or to show some individual discipline. He can't be responsible for everything on the pitch. They let themselves down, but of course, they're his players. The system, if this was the first time this has happened, or the second, or not the 20th or whatever, how many times do we see us go into big games and be that open and have no real midfield and have a shaky defence? So I think a lot of it has come down to him, in the sense that he hasn't fixed this over years of us turning out performances like this. the tactics don't particularly seem right. I don't know how long we're going to stick with 3 at the back. I don't know if he's losing faith in it, because we seem to ditch it in most games now towards the end, and especially if we're going to be running short on centre backs. I wonder if we will go back to 4 at the back. So there's so much confusion, and just he doesn't help himself when he makes really strange decisions, which fans just look at. If we somehow win that game and Danny Welbeck has an incredible performance, then he takes some credit. But he's obviously going to get so much criticism when you leave out your £50 million striker in our biggest game so far.
Yep, I think. Well, we'll perfect point to end that bit on. I think we'll move on to other stuff, because I have a horrible feeling we'll be coming back to having similar conversations like this in the future. But at least it's not dull. I mean, there's one advantage for people like us doing a podcast. We'll come on to other stuff in a second. Just a very quick roundup. I mean, I'll keep it very brief given the time. Man City won, Man United won, Chelsea won, obviously Liverpool won over the weekend. The one mild bright spot was Spurs conceding a very late goal at home at Wembley to only draw with Burnley, but really that's clutching at straws to try and get some joy out of that. There is some joy in that, of course, but really it was rather overshadowed by what else happened. We'll talk very briefly then about some transfer news this week, and indeed tonight, where there is a suggestion that a fee has been agreed with Chelsea for Oxlade-Chamberlain. But the other weird thing that happened, which I'd completely missed until Sunday, was Mustafi is apparently on the way to Inter Milan. Now, I don't know how accurate any of these things are, but there doesn't seem to be much news about anyone coming in, but there does seem to be news about those two going out. Oxlade-Chamberlain we've known about, but Pete, any thoughts on this Mustafi thing?
Oh, I was more interested in Oxlade-Chamberlain going.
Okay, well, take your pick. Have a go at that.
Please let him go. Please. Yeah. I just really can't be bothered anymore. I see no reason why he should continue. He's been given quite enough chance to show an interest in staying with this club. Has not signed a new contract. Is not performing anywhere near the level to which he should be to be offered a new contract anyway. So please, let's get rid of him. Mustafi is very strange, considering unless we do have another centre back in mind, and I do wonder whether there's any possibility that it might be Van Dijk.
Well, that was a name that came up, wasn't it? It seems unlikely, but then everything seems a bit crazy at the moment. Signing Mustafi
for big signing for us.
It would. I mean, signing Mustafi for a year and then letting him get that. I wonder if something else is going on behind the scenes. It seems like an odd one to me. Oxlade-Chamberlain, because I should mention, apparently the story came out this week that he had been offered a very, very handsome new contract, but had rejected that. So, and to be fair, I don't really have a problem with the way he's behaved. I don't think he's done anything. No, I know you weren't suggesting it, but I'm just sort of saying it. So, it's the way the market works, and he's, he hasn't put in the performances for us, the goals and the assists or whatever, over a number of years. Now, he would say that's because he hasn't played enough, he hasn't played in the right place, but I think it's fair enough. If we can get a good wodge for him, then so be it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a reason to keep someone like Sanchez and Ozil to some extent on the last year of their contract, because they're good enough and worth it for you for the last 12 months. But Oxlade-Chamberlain just isn't, and good luck to him.
Okay, Matt, we'll come back to this, I'm sure, when we do our next pod, because things will have settled themselves down then one way or the other. Any thoughts on those departures or any potential incomings?
No, I agree. More than happy for Oxlade-Chamberlain to go, even if it is to Chelsea. He's not performing, and he's pushing other players out of position and out of the team. So no problem with him going for what looks something like 35 million. So yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Mustafi, I can't even begin to understand. Our defence is a problem, and the solution is not to sell even more of them. And I saw today that Inter Milan want it to be on a loan deal first, so we wouldn't get a fee. So I don't understand what the logic would be behind selling him. But the fact he was on the bench, and the Wenger didn't deny in his press conference the other day, so it looks like that could happen. and I think that's a really bad decision because that leaves us with Koscielny, whose Achilles seems to be a problem, Mertesacker, our glorious club captain who can't get a game, Chambers, who Wenger appears to have no trust in, and Rob Holding. So, if Wenger's confident with going into a season with those four, then I don't know, what can we do?
What can we do? Well, it's fascinating that might lead to, or that might not lead's not the word I mean. That might be an example of the, I'll use the word relationship, but think I'm doing those air quotes as I say it, between the manager, the chief executive, and the owner, or various subsets there, because that seems to be a suggestion that might be at the bottom of a lot of the problems there are with the club at the moment, and that might just be an example of that. Okay, well look, we'll come back to that. We'll zip on because time is pressing. Very quickly then, our Europa League draw was made this week. We're in Group H with Bate Borisov, Cologne, and a club with an odd name that everyone just calls Red Star Belgrade because that's what we all know them as. Not quite the short trips to sort of Belgium and France we might have liked. A couple of long away ones there. We'll talk about these as we get closer to them. I'll also throw in that we the League Cup draw made it 4:30 in the morning to suit a Chinese audience, but it wasn't on the telly anyway, so there's another one to try and work out. We're at home to Doncaster for that, which is coming up in just 2 or 3 weeks, I think. Matt, any thoughts on any of those draws, or we'll just have to see how it goes, I suppose.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the Doncaster game more. I think we've got a better chance of winning that. I think we seem to get a lot of home draws in cups, so that's pretty good. As for the Europa League draw, yeah, there's some pretty miserable trips. Some of the teams in there, I mean, I'd never even heard of them. There's a lot of teams that don't seem to have any vowels in their name either. It just seems to be the most random assortment of letters. But I don't know, it seems like a pretty typical Europa League draw. Probably what we should have expected.
It does. I mean, it's interesting. Before it happened, I was having a look, and our coefficient score is miles ahead of everyone else's, and that's for a team that has, let's be frank, not been very good in the Champions League for 20 years. Yeah. So you'd hope, as we discussed before, we'll give it a go to one degree or another. Pete, any thoughts on those draws?
Yeah, well, I've paid absolutely no interest, pay no attention, and have no interest at all in them. But it's as I say, I think we should have a bit of fun with it and just enjoy it. And our group is quite a fun one. Cologne, Borisov, and Belgrade. I mean, they may not be great destinations to travel to, but I'm not interested in doing that anyway. So I think we should just enjoy the ride and have a bit of fun. And maybe it'll be a bit of relief from our league form.
Maybe Lacazette could get game in the Europa.
Yeah. Let's play the £50 million man.
Right, we'll be quick then because I know we don't want to go on for too long. Predictions. We have a leader now in our prediction competition. Matt's pessimism was, or perhaps we should say realism actually, was got him a point. Didn't get the right score. That would have been pessimistic to predict a 4-0 reverse. But so Matt sneaks into the lead with 2 points. I've still got 1, and Pete is still yet to get off the mark. We have Bournemouth to come. Now this will not be for a couple of weeks, and we'll do a pod not straight after the game, but the Monday after that game. And then so this is the only prediction we have to do now, because after that the Europa League we can do that in that pod, if you see what I mean. So I can't remember where I started last week. Let's go with Pete then. A line. I mean, really, you can keep this as brief as you like. A line on Bournemouth and a prediction, please.
A line on Bournemouth. Well, they're one of the clubs below us in the table, so that's quite good and exciting news. But also quite worrying because they will have something to play for. They're not. They look like they're about to get themselves into a very difficult situation, and they didn't look too bad against Man United at the weekend. I watched some of that and thought they were.
It's Man City at the weekend, but yes.
Sorry, Man City. Same thing. They looked reasonably all right, and they tend to start badly and start getting themselves together. So I'm tempted to say 4-0 to Bournemouth, follow my result of the last game tactic, but I will in fact go 3-1 Arsenal.
Oh, that is spooky because that's exactly what I predicted. I wrote my prediction down before we started, and I've gone for 3-1 as well. On the basis that I think whilst we are a terrible side, we're not a terrible side yet. Although that could well be on the way. So I don't know. I just thought we might click and get a couple, and inevitably, of course, Bournemouth would get one as well. So there you go. We've actually matched each other for that one completely independently. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows what kind of side we'll be able to muster together by then. I think Bournemouth are probably a side who aren't just going to come and sit back. They'll probably attack us, which obviously puts pressure on our defence, but should give us more room going forward. I think even for me, it'd be a bit too miserable to predict us to lose. So I think we will win. I went 3-1 for the first two games and it didn't work, so I'll go 2-1 Arsenal.
2-1 Arsenal. All right then. Well, there we go. I shall enter those in the old spreadsheet, and we'll keep an eye on things, and hope. Well, I hope we're all right in the sense of a win, and that would be nice. But apart from that, then we will come back and check on that after the international break. So we'll finish there. Thank you very much for your time, people. So Pete, enjoy the international break.
And you too. It'll be a blessed relief.
It will, won't it? And Matt, we'll speak to you soon too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both, and thank you very much for listening, and we will be back in a couple of weeks. Enjoy the international break. Speak to you then. Cheers. Bye-bye.